Hi everyone, I'm Luke Hector and this is The Broken Meeple, a show where I rave and rant about board games, but usually more the latter part. This is a little game that you'll probably be seeing around either Catch-Up Games or BlackRock Games at Essen, and this one is probably going to be completely unheard of by people. I bet most of you don't even know this one even existed this year, and it's called Temple Code, which again, as a title, probably wouldn't exactly have got my attention on the Essen preview list. But this one is essentially a 1 to 4 player game where it kind of plays out a bit like Mastermind, except that there's a code that you're trying to figure out that's your own code, and you're trying to figure it out before the other players do. In solo mode, you're basically trying to figure it out within so many turns. Sounds simple enough. Question is it worth your time?
Get on with it.
So what happens in this game is that you have your own combination of 3 statues to figure out. I need to know what order these 3 statues are on my card, and it doesn't matter if you're colorblind because the statues match with a color, which also matches with a symbol. So there's multiple ways for you to tell them apart. And so I won't know what these are. I've got to figure it out Mastermind style. Everybody will have 2 of these cards face up in front of them, and then when it's your turn, you pick 2 of them in front of any player, or any other player, and basically take 1 for yourself and 1 to them. The ones that you get to have, basically, in fact I'll use this as a better example, is what you do is that you place it so that it sits on top of your card, and on the back of these cards there essentially is a big arrow written down, as well as a bunch of red triangles and blue dots in different columns. And it's like, well, what on earth's the relevance of that? The idea is that when I place the card on top of here, the pointer points to a specific column, and in this case it's pointing to a little column that says just a blue dot. Nothing but a blue dot. No other symbols, no red triangles or anything. So the idea is that a red triangle means that the statue is on your code, but not in the right place. And if it's a blue dot, it means it's not only on your sheet, but it's also in the correct place. Again, Mastermind anybody? We all know how this game works. It's the same kind of deal. So I'm looking at this and I see a blue dot. So I know the card and it's got egg, it's got yellow, blue, red on it. Right, so one of those 3 is in the correct position. The other 2 aren't even on my sheet at all. So if I take a little glance at my one, yep, I can see that this one at the bottom corner here has, as we can see hopefully on the camera, the 8, that red statue on the right hand side. Well, on here, it's also on the right hand side, so the cipher matches. And basically the idea is that you carry on until somebody has figured out their code twice. You've got little tokens that you grab, and the first person to do it twice wins. Bit like how Skull used to do it, where you had to flip over the coasters and do that twice. But that's essentially the game. You can take notes on the little pad, so what you tend to do is write down exactly what symbols were on your card, what notation was found, and then you can do whatever deductive reasoning you want from that point. But we all know how Mastermind works, so it's just a case of figuring it out from the ciphers that you've got, and you have full display of what other players have face up, so you can think, well, hang on, I need to know more about the green and the orange statues. Well, hang on, somebody's got that card in front of them. You know what, I'm going to take this and let them have the other card. Obviously, you don't want them to have too much information for what they have, so you want to make certain that their card is not really telling them anything new, but that's essentially the gist. You just carry on until you figured it out twice, and there you go, that's the person who wins. So there you go, this game is crazy simple, and components-wise there's not a huge amount in here either. I mean, you basically have the little cardboard tokens to say, oh, I figured it out once or twice. Big whoop, I mean, I'm sure you could count. Everybody's got a little plastic stand, and then the rest of it is just basically these cards, which are well illustrated, good artwork, but they've only got to tell you very simple stuff, and a giant notepad. In fact, the only blemish that this one had really from a component perspective was the fact that they gave me a French copy of it. So I would have liked an English copy, but the English rules are on the website, on Board Game Geek, and I'm sure at Essen they'll have English copies for you. But the game is language independent, so other than the rule book, you don't actually need to worry about a language issue. But yeah, there's not much else to say. The game is basically Mastermind. It's Mastermind, except that you've got other players and you're kind of racing to figure yours out twice before they do. In terms of the solo mode, you basically try to figure out as many combinations as you can before the deck runs out. So you have all 35 cards here, and you basically go through a similar motion to what you do in multiplayer, but you're trying to figure out as many combinations as you can and reflect yourself as a high score. So yes, it is kind of beat your own score, but beat your own score I don't mind in a deduction game. It's a bit annoying in a Euro game where it's just, alright, I'll go through all these mechanics and I got 43 points, whatever. Here, it's just straight up, how many combinations can I figure out? And it's all based on deduction. So it's your logic skills and that are basically going to dictate how well you do. I think beat your own score for this type of thing works. And it makes it really super quick. I mean, you could dilly-dally for as long as you want thinking about your notes and that, but if you want to get a game of this done in like 20-30 minutes by yourself, you will do that. And that's all this game takes, about 20 or 30 minutes tops. It's nice and simple, nice and quick. But is it fun to play overall? Yes, but we got to also contend with the fact that this is not the first time we've seen this. This whole deduction element of a nice simple deduction game has been done before. Sherlock 13 is a good example where it was a card game where you had to figure out a specific combo of symbols and that one could be done in about 15-20 minutes. That doesn't work on the same premise like Mastermind, but again, it's another small, smaller box than this even, quickie little filler. But in terms of the Mastermind mechanic, if that's what you're going for, there are two other bigger games that have done this before. Rising 5, which was a cooperative experience, that had little monsters and that you fought as well and different characters, but at the end of the day you were working together to figure out a Mastermind combo. The other one that comes to mind is one that people might not have heard of as much. It's called The Lost Code. It used to be called Think Straight in a different publisher, and that one has you figuring out specific numbers and colors in a row on your sheet, and that one has a bit more to it. Like, you've got the different dials to say, right, I'm going to guess it's in this range, and you've got victory points based on those guesses, and it's a lot harder to think of it. So that one is more like a 60-minute, 75-minute game with a Mastermind feel that's just got a bit more depth to it. If I was to say which of all those ones I've mentioned I'd rather play, I'd rather play The Lost Code. The Lost Code is really, really good. But this one still has a place because Mastermind is a very simple concept to explain. Most people, if not everybody, has seen what Mastermind is. You don't have to have played Mastermind to know the idea of it. And even if you have somehow managed to go your entire life without ever knowing what the Mastermind deduction game is, then fine. I can explain this to you in about 60 seconds. It really doesn't take long to explain the rules. Yes, I've got them all in French. Big whoop, I can remember all the rules off the top of my head and there's not much else to think about. But the game itself plays at a smooth pace. People are thinking about their own stuff. There's enough. It's not autopilot, so yes, there's only 3 symbols you've got to figure out, but it's still going to take some effort and some thinking. And it's meant to be a filler game. It's not meant to burn your brain out before you start playing like a more meaty game like a Lacerda. The one little blemish with these cards is that I do like the way it's clever in that it's done a little cipher thing on the back, but if you're a little bit short-sighted, if you're not wearing your glasses or something like that, you may find it a little bit hard to kind of see the which column you're looking at particularly, even though it does have the big pointer on it. And the other issue with it is that if you are even slightly out, you'll end up looking at the wrong column by accident or something, and you should hopefully be able to tell you haven't fully aligned it, but you just need to take your time with it and not rush it, because if you look at the wrong column by just sliding it accidentally to the side, then you are basically going to be screwing yourself over. But it's fine, it's not one that I would play tons. Another game that's just come to mind was Code 777 that had a similar kind of like guess what numbers I've got in a row and what place there are. So this is nothing new. But it is the quickest example of all of those games I've mentioned. Lost Code is easily a 60-75 minute game, if, maybe 90 even. Rising 5, you could technically do it in half an hour if you know what you're doing, but more likely you're going to do it in about 45 to 60. And the Code 777 is probably about a sort of 30 to 45 minute or something. This one you'll get done in about 20 minutes. It says half an hour on the box, but honestly, 30 minutes, absolute tops. Usually somebody's figured it out by then. If you get your thing wrong, then yes, you've got to figure out an entirely new one, but, with 4 of you at the table, someone's going to be knowing what they're doing and figuring it out, so it's really not that long a game and not a tricky one. So it's got its place. I just think that there are other versions of this game that I prefer overall, but it's still good. It's still good fun. It's just a very easy little Mastermind puzzle, which you could teach to pretty much anybody. Even someone who's never played a board game before could, treat this as a nice little puzzle. It's simple and it's produced reasonably well with good notation pad. I like the way that this is done because you can basically like cross out the different symbols once you've figured out what they are and write enough here, so it tells you what all the statues and symbols are. So it's a very good little notepad it gives you, but it does what it needs to do nice and easily. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10 overall. It's good and I recommend it. Is it groundbreaking? No, it's nothing overly new, but we don't have many of these kind of proper deduction games that can play in the short time span of like 20 to 30 minutes. Most of them tend to take longer. And yes, I would prefer to play those ones. Search for Planet X or Lost Species, Lost Code as I mentioned. I'd probably play this over Code 777, honestly. I think that one's probably a bit too long for what it needs to be and can be quite complicated. This one I think is nice and straightforward. But like I say, you get it out of the box, you just tip the stuff out, explain it in 60 seconds, and you're done and dusted in 20 to 25 minutes. That's pretty good for a game that's gonna, make you think, but without bursting the brain cells before you get onto something a little bit more meaty. It just doesn't have the most, inspiring cover or title or anything like that. It does what it needs to do and can't really say much more. 7 out of 10, it exists, but it fills a nice little 20 to 30 minute niche. So if you like little puzzle games that you can teach to anybody, give this one a look. Hopefully it's priced accordingly, because if it's too expensive, that might be a bit more of a problem. But if it's nice and cheap, it's worth grabbing. So that's it for me on this episode of The Broken Meeple. If you like what you see, then please thumb it up on YouTube and thumb it up on Board Game Geek when it goes live on that page. All the funds increase engagement. It's all good. Check out the rest of my content that I've been doing to prepare for Essen. After all the videos have gone up this week, that will be it on The Broken Meeple for a good little while, because I've got a convention this weekend, and then I have one day of work where I'm going to be stressed out like crazy, and then I go straight to Essen, and I won't be back until the Sunday, and then I've got work on the Monday. So yeah, I'm going to be kind of indisposed for a while. But, for that time, I'm sure you've got much more on the channel to watch, so it's not like you're devoid of content. I just need to take a little bit of a break from the channel to focus on conventions. Trying to do both at the same time is, a bit too much, honestly. So until next time, remember, regardless of whether you consider yourself a true mastermind or not, it's still only a game, so take care, and bye for now.